Okay, well, welcome to what's normally our Sunday night Facebook Live. However, it's Friday night and I'm on vacation. That's why we're not doing this on Sunday. That's why there were a lot of questions coming in and I didn't want to let those pile up over time. So, wanted to take some time to answer those kind of while I'm in between trips on my vacation. Marlon and I have been able to travel down to the Hells Canyon, which borders Idaho, Washington State, and also Oregon in parts of it. Deepest gorge in the United States. A few years ago, we had the opportunity to raft down that. Did a 3 day and 2 night raft trip down through the on the Snake River through the Hells Canyon. And so this time we wanted to go back and ride a jet boat up the canyon, and we were able to do that. Boy, what a treat! That was a lot of fun. Tomorrow I'm going to head back out and I have a guided drift boat steelhead fishing trip on the Klickitat River. Looking forward to that. Go catch a big old mess of steelhead, spend some time with my Uncle Bob and some friends, and yeah, just enjoying a good vacation. Got another week to go, but hey, yeah, I wanted to tackle some of these questions. We are live, so if you have questions while we're on, Marlon's on board over here, and she can write those down. We'll see if we can answer a few questions live tonight, but did have a few that I wanted to go through here real quick. Just real quick, I want to touch on just a couple of things. Be sure you watch that soil moisture capacity right now. I know here in the United States, we're in the heat of it. We're in that period where you just don't want to let those trees become stressed at all. You want to hold that soil moisture capacity at about 80%. You could be deficit irrigating, and that could be more or less. Cooling could be affecting that. Maybe you're not irrigating at all because you have overhead cooling going on during the day. But just make sure you're digging or you have monitors out there and you're watching that soil moisture capacity. Probably you're rotating cooling right now. I know it's been 100 degrees, supposed to cool down to about 95 tomorrow. But this is cooling season. So make sure you have the sunburn protectants on. Make sure you have your cooling sprinklers on. It's just kind of that time of the year. And the other time of the year it is, for me, is kind of my drop dead date for fertilizer. So here in Washington State, we get real harsh winters that can come early, and so I want to make sure that tree is shut down and those reserves are pulled back down to the root system. So it doesn't mean that I don't want to continue to grow the trees for about another month. I just don't want to keep putting N into the system that tree has to work through. So I do still want to keep that tree happy, keep it growing, but I want to pull back the fertilizer. Now's the time to do that. You can continue with amendments, like iron amendments or potassium amendments or humic acid. This is a great time to use humic acid. It'll break up those carbon molecules and release what fertilizer is bound up in that soil. Great time to use humics, but for me, it's the time of the year where I pull back the nitrogen. I wouldn't do any more nitrogen after July 15th or summer solstice here, at least in Washington State, probably the United States. And summer pruning, perfect time for summer pruning. We've had some questions about summer pruning. I promise, just as soon as I get back next week, we're going to put some focus on that. I'm going to get out there and prune some trees for you. Some people have asked about that, if I would do that, and I'm definitely going to get out there and do that. But this is the perfect time for summer pruning. There's a lot of reasons you might want to summer prune. A big one is to get sunlight into that apple so you can color up that apple this time of year. That's probably the biggest reason that we summer prune, but summer pruning can really be destructive. So you want to know what you're going out there for. You want to know what you're doing. Make sure you give very clear instructions to the people out there so that they're not removing very important renewal wood that you're going to want for next year. Otherwise, they just get in there and get to clipping and they remove all that good wood that you need for your next year's wood that you're going to crop on. So I'll be doing some videos next week as soon as I get back on that. So yeah, with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right into your questions, and we're going to start with Jerome. Jerome always has great questions. Jerome says, in a block that has overhead cooling, and you're doing a cover spray, in my case, I'm using Madex XLV. Do you use any adjuvants to help, or does it just wash off? I've tried new film P with mixed results. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the input. I've used new film P before. I'm always looking for ways to cut adjuvants and all that sort of stuff out of mixes. I have used new film with some success. I actually went back and looked at some of my spray wrecks. I'm not using any new film right now. Don't think it's necessary, but I hear you. It is hard to use those viruses and those organic products this time of year, because they just don't hold out in the heat. You have to keep them refrigerated anyway, and if you put them out in the heat, I think it's really questionable how long those things last out in hot temperatures. So you want to get the most out of them you possibly can. Spray at night in real cool conditions. Tighten up that window. You're not going to want to be spraying those every 14 days, depending on your pressure. Maybe you're spraying every 7 days. You really have to tighten up the windows on those. And I just wanted to mention, just for the heck of it, I had a chance to spend some time a few years back with Alan Knight, who was renowned in this area for really having a great understanding of codling moth and flights and how codling moth work. And I would look back on some of the papers that he wrote on that. I want to recommend that to you. Some papers written by Alan Knight. You can just Google it. Those will come right up. And he really talks about the flight patterns for codling moth, how those work and how the peaks work, how the traps. He really helped establish kind of some of the trapping formulas that we use. I would encourage you to look that up. I would also recommend to you, it looks like WSU is going to be having an integrated pest management field day on July 31st. And it's going to be about codling moth. And so if you're in this area, I would encourage you to be a part of that. That's going to be at 10 a.m. to 12:30, and there's a couple credits involved. So, but I would recommend to you that you learn the flight patterns. Here in Washington State, we generally have 2 flights of codling moth, and possibly a third. In recent, with temperatures rising and climate change, we have experienced some third flights, smaller third flights in recent years. So I would recommend that to you. Look up some of the paperwork that Alan Knight has done, and Washington State University is going to have a field day coming up July 31st, if you wanted to be a part of that. Ankush Kalta says, what is the best pesticide for apple rot? That's really a better question for the guys at the warehouse. But I suspect it's fungicides that we've been talking about, like Captan, Manzoseb, Zyram, some of those products, those post-harvest products. It would be one of those. But I'm more experienced on the orchard side, what we're doing in the orchard, but have some experience on the packing shed side also. But I would think it's, Captan, Manzoseb, Zyram, those type of post-harvest products. Hope that helps, Ankush. Deepak Shahan says, can you suggest fungicide schedule for apples? Can't really do a schedule. I think when you get in mildew season in the early spring, when you come into mildew season, when the buds first start pushing, you should probably, for me, I get on a calendar program of, depending on the pressure, every 2 weeks, or we could shorten it up depending on pressure and Honeycrisp or a different variety. But I would be on the calendar, whether it's every 10 days or every 14 days, I would be on a calendar program for mildew. Really a lot of the same old products we've been using for years and years. There's a couple new ones out there, but it's the Maravons and the Rallies and the Mirivos, the Acadias, the Thompsons, the Flints. It's all of those. Basically, there's 3 categories of fungicides. There's a protective. You put those on in advance. Those are preventive. Those are protective. There's a systemic kind. That are systemic, they actually get in the plant and work through the plant, and then there's the post-harvest kind that we just talked about. I think the most important thing, short of giving you a schedule, I have field men that write my program for me, so I don't really want to recommend a program to you, but I would say those are some of the products that you can use. It's real important that you rotate classes and modes of action. Make sure you're rotating those. If you continue to use the same product, the same class, you'll develop resistance really quickly. So you really want to use all of the above and use those in a rotation. Oh, we have some people joining. That's great, considering this was kind of, we just kind of did this at the last minute. Biku's on board. Jose Sambia's on board. Iqbal's on board. Vihar, thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate that. Okay, Mark Keller says, what about bacterial shot hole on peach trees? Once the bacteria is there, not much can be done, question mark. I've been rotating copper, sulfur, and Captan, haven't kicked it yet. How is there not antibiotics for plants? Okay, yeah, I feel you, Mark. I really don't have any peach trees anymore except the ones in my backyard. They got a pretty good crop on them. But I have grown peach trees most of my life. and I don't really have an answer for you. You know, we're struggling with the same thing in our cherries, and there's some resistance issues to copper that have really sprung up here in Washington State. I've talked about that quite a bit. The question that I would have for you, though, is Casuman labeled for peaches. That's one product that we've been beginning to use. We've been beginning to use lime sulfur. I think that has some effect. And also there's a product called Casuman that we've been using. I don't know if it's labeled for peaches, but you could look into it. It might help you out. Hope that helps, Mark. Thanks for the question. Merino Sheep Farm says, I have a question regarding Gala apples. Do you follow a specific nutrition program in your orchard throughout the season? Yes, we do, and I posted that last week, so you can find that posted in the school or in the subscriber page. You'll find all that sort of stuff. Doesn't cost you anything. Check that out. Let me finish the question though. It says, or do you apply nutrients based on the crop's requirements at different growth stages? To answer your question, Marino, I do both. I have a standard nutrient package that I do in the pink. I really think that pink timing and, post pink timing, where you're doing a lot of mildew sprays, those early sprays, I do a lot of foliar packages in those. That's when I'm going to get on, my potassium and my magnesium and my manganese and all of those, my iron and my zinc and all of those foliar products are going to be in that pink package. I'll do that probably 2 or 3 times. So yes, I do have a package that I do, and I try to do that right around pink. But I also do products as I need them, and that could be, we do a lot of calcium sprays, and we do potassium sprays for one reason or another. So we're doing some dye caps right now. So there are reasons that I would do other sprays. So I do both. I would do later sprays based on soil samples and leaf samples. If a block needed a specific amendment, I would be doing those right now. But apart from that, yes, I do have a standard package that I would do in the pink. Good question. Rinku Lashnu says, but somebody says ethyl is cause of fruit drop. Rinku, yes, ethyl can cause fruit drop. There's no question about that. Ethyl is a good product. I like to use ethyl for a couple of things. You can use it for return bloom, and I really do that early now during the thinning timing when we're doing the thinning sprays. I've moved away from later ethyl applications, which can really help you with return bloom, but buyers frown on it. So really moved away from late season ethyl applications. I used to do ethyl applications, and I think this is what you're driving at. I used to do ethyl applications to hasten harvest. In other words, to make harvest come quicker, but that can also have some negative effects, such as storage issues and bruising at harvest. So it can have some negative effects. And if you do it at the wrong timing and you don't get the rate right, yes, it can cause excessive thinning. So have I ever had a problem with it over thinning? I never have. And I've been using it for 40 years. I've been using Edifon, as is what it is. Ethyl is Edifon. I've been using it for many, many years, and I haven't had incidents of overthinning, and I haven't had any problems, but I've heard a lot of people that have. And so you really have to read the label and make sure you follow the label. There's a lot of science in that as far as the timing goes, so I would encourage you to do that. And Ethyl's a great product if you follow the label and you get the timing right. Zubar is on board, Mitch Songa is on board, and Rother Farouz is on board. Nice to have you. We just decided to do a quick question session because they were piling up, and I'm on vacation, and I didn't want you guys to think that we weren't following the page, and so I wanted to get in here and answer a few before I go fishing again tomorrow. So Malik Omar says, on calcium foliar formulation, what about lab grade calcium chloride? I highlighted lab grade on here because I don't really know what lab grade calcium chloride is. I know what calcium chloride is. That's what I use. I use calcium chloride for bitter pit and for good cell development in apples, good solid apple. But I don't know specifically what you're referring to as far as lab grade calcium chloride. I'm not a chemist, so I can't really speak to that. But calcium chloride's fine. Use it all the time. Night Babu Babu says, how many liters of water should we provide to an M9 plant daily? If not daily, then which schedule is good? Naik, I really can't tell you how many liters of water to give to your M9 plant daily. I would say this, hold that at 80% of soil moisture capacity. I would encourage you to go back and watch some of the videos that I did on soil moisture capacity and how to monitor that and how to look at the soil and read that and gauge so that we can all agree on what is 80% of soil moisture capacity. You can find those videos in the school. Please go back and look at those. But I would really encourage you to hold the soil moisture capacity at 80%. I'm not sure how much water that's going to be, but I really can't give you a good answer because it depends on your evapotranspiration and how much your tree and your plant's using, and you really have to watch the soil to know what that is. So I would encourage you to dig down in your soil a foot and get a ball of dirt in your hands and look if you can make that into a ball without it crumbling apart. So good question. I wish I could give you a better answer, but I bet if you go back and watch those videos, they're going to help you out. Hilal Bot says, which month can we use paclobuzotral in an apple tree? I'm from India, Kashmir. I'm not going to be able to tell you which month. Probably I could figure it out, but let me tell you the timing, the tree timing when you use paclobuzotral. For you guys in the U.S., it's a similar product to Apogee, is what it is. It's a growth retardant, and even though that's not what I use, I'm using the Apogee product. I think it's kind of the same. It kind of does the same thing. Works, has the same mode of action. Your question is about timing, and you're asking about rates on different size of trees. I really use the same rate. I don't really vary the rate. Depending on the level of the tree. If it's a tree that I'm still growing and trying to get to the top wire, I won't use it. I want to get to the tree to the top wire and get the space filled so I don't impede the growth of that tree in any way before I begin to use Apogee or paclobuzotral. But to answer your question, the timing for it is at peak. And people always say to me, that's too early, it's too early, you want to wait till you get a little growth. Wrong. If you wait till you get a little growth, it's already too late. You really want to go after that in the pink with your first application. And if you do, it's likely to save you a fourth or a fifth application because you're going to get it hard right out of the gate. How many applications does it take? It could only take one if you hit it early, but generally it takes 2 or 3. How do you tell? If you watch the growth on the terminal growth on those plants, when you use these growth retardants like Apogee or paclobuzotral, what will happen is you'll see those leaves begin to tighten up in that growth. They'll be very, very close together. Versus a plant that's growing strong and isn't retarded, you'll see the leaves are spaced every 3 or 4 inches. You'll see a leaf. Well, if you're using one of these growth retardants, if you watch, you'll see the leaves will come out and they'll be spaced very close, like a 1/4 inch together. And that really tells you that it's worked and you've stopped the growth on that. And when you really get it stopped dead in its tracks, it'll set a terminal bud and you'll really know. But how many applications? As many as it takes according to the label. I think the label allows 3 or 4 applications. You'll want to look at that. But if you hit it early, generally you can get away with just a couple applications, but start at peak. Good question. Shabir Dar says, how to increase size in Gala? This is a question that we always get. Thin early. Thin early, thin hard. Start with if you're a commercial grower, start with the lime sulfur and the blossom thinners and knock off as many of those flowers as you can right out of the gate. That's real important. You want to thin early with both your chemical thinning. If you're not using chemical thinners or lime sulfur or any sort of blossom thinners, get in there and hand thin early. Just as soon as you can distinguish that your kings are set, and as soon as it makes sense economically, get in there and thin. That's going to really help you to have bigger size because Galas are one of the first crops out of the gate, and your growing season is very short versus later varieties like a Pink Lady where you have a real long growing season. You get a real short growing season for Galas. So thin early, thin the Galas first. Of all the varieties that you have, for me, I thin Galas first because I'm looking for size. When you thin, make sure you space them apart. We always say a puño or a fist. You want to make sure that those galas are spaced a fist apart so they have plenty of room to grow. So make sure you have a good space between each and every one. Thin early. What else? Water correctly. Don't ever let them get stressed out. Don't ever let them get dry. You'll never make that up. Hold that soil moisture capacity at 80%, and you should have bigger galas. That's the best advice that I can give you. Hamid says, how to stop vegetative growth in delicious orchard. Pull back the end. We talked about this quite a bit, how to stop vegetative growth. Got quite a few videos on this, but pull back the end. I'd start with that. Deficit irrigate. You can pull back the water a little bit and deficit irrigate. Very effective way to do this would be to summer prune. You can go out there and you can summer prune those trees. I'm going to be doing some videos on that. If you summer prune a tree versus pruning it in the dormant, it'll be a de-invigorating cut. It'll help to take the vigor out of that tree. So I would recommend summer pruning. In extreme cases, scoring. We've done a number of videos on scoring to reduce vigor. So in extreme cases where there's alternation and you just have over vigorous trees, you can consider scoring during the bloom timing. Pulling limbs down. That's a good way to take the vigor out of that tree. If that limb is upright, it's just going to want to be vegetative. It's going to want to grow. So if you pull that limb down, you'll take the vigor out of that, and it'll set up fruit. And nothing will take vigor out of that tree more than having a lot of fruit on it. That'll really take the vigor out of that tree. And finally, all of the above. You can add or take away from those pieces of the puzzle, depending on how drastic the situation that you have. But those are some of the tools that you have in your tool belt. I think one of our growers has also recommended root pruning. We do that also. That's another tool. Aju is on board. Abishan, welcome to the call. And Erwir Yasuf, welcome. Thanks for joining us at such late notice. Nice to have you on board. That question was how to stop vegetative growth in a delicious orchard. And the next question just happens to be, I want to gain vegetative growth in a 2-year apple plant. So this is the opposite of what we just talked about. So in this case, you're going to want to make sure that you prune in the dormant. You're going to want to make sure that you fumigate, or that you fertigate. I'm sorry. When I'm really growing a tree and I'm trying to get it to the top wire, I want to make sure that I'm fertilizing that through the drip twice a week. If you don't have drip or access to fertigation, you can spray it on through a weed sprayer and water it in. There's several ways to do that, but you want to be fertilizing that thing a couple of times a week and really pushing it and challenge that growth. Make sure you prune it in the dormant season. So opposite of all the things that we just talked about for de-invigorating the tree. Sunil Keith says, which rootstock is more productive, G41, G202, or G969? Kindly suggest. Thanks. I have quite a few Geneva 41s and quite a few Geneva 969s. The 202s, I think I have a 10-acre block, and half of that block is 202 and half is 337. So I do have some 202s, but I don't have many 202s. I do have a small block of organic Honeycrisp on Geneva 202, and I haven't really been happy with that block. Those are right next to a 337 in the same block, and the 337s have a crop every single year, and the 202s have a tendency to alternate. So right out of the gate, I'm going to take the 202s off the board, just for my very small sample that I've taken. I mean, I wouldn't take that to the bank because, again, I only have about 5 acres of 202s versus quite a few of the others. But just from my own personal experience, anecdotally speaking, I'm going to take those off the table. So we're down to Geneva 41 and 969. I like them both. If I'm in a little heavier soil where the trees don't grow quite as well, I would make sure that I had the 969. It's a little stronger root, has a little more horsepower. But if I didn't have any problem growing the tree and I had good soil and good growing conditions, I would probably rather have the Geneva 41. I think the Geneva 41, the bud density is just going to be a little better than in the 969, but I like both of those roots. Either one of those would be a great root. The 202 could be a good root, just hasn't been good for me. So that would be my recommendation. Azar Khan says, can we use paclobuzatral for good plum flowering? We just talked about that in apples. I don't know about plums. Never used it in plums. It's a good question. Wish I could help. I just don't know about that. Socklane Mushtak says, some experts suggest that paclobuzotral will harm our trees in the long run. Okay. Some experts suggest. It's possible. I've been using Apogee for, I don't know, I'm somewhere between 10 and 15 years I've been using Apogee. What's the life of a tree now in a commercial setting? In a time where new varieties are always coming in, we're always rotating varieties out. The life cycle of a tree might be 15 to 20 years now, sometimes even less. I've had varieties in the ground for 3-4 years and I'm already grafting them over. So, the life cycle of a tree is much less than it used to be back in the olden days because of a finicky market. We're always looking for that newest, best variety, newest strain, best, better color. And so, the life cycle of a tree is naturally declined. If you have a tree for 15 or 20 years now, that's pretty good life of a tree. You might even graft it sooner than that. What am I driving at? I guess my point is I've been using it for at least that long and I haven't had a problem. And I know, I guess that's not evidence that it's not going to cause a problem at some point. It probably could, but I've been really, really happy with it. I think it's been a game changer in the apple industry, and I'm really glad we have it. And I've actually heard of people having good results using it on cherries too. So I'm going to be playing with that in the future. But so far, I haven't had any problems with it. And if you hear of anything, let us know. So, good question. Jaws Denoa says, hi, what type of metal do you recommend and layout for V-trellis things? Boy, that's a big question. I get that question about every couple of weeks. And I promise you, in the dormant season, I'm going to pull up some information on that. And I'm going to, while the trees are dormant and you can see it a little better, it's really hard to see the trellises in a video right now because of all the foliage. But this winter, when the foliage is gone and you can really see the trellis, I'll do some videos and kind of help point you in the right direction, how to design a V-trellis. But I would say that there's some great companies here in the valley, like Oregon Vineyard Supply, Wilson Irrigation, Valley Farm Service. There's some great companies. I can ask Marlon to post some of those for you. There's some great companies here that will design a trellis for you if you buy the steel from them. And so they use a great steel. They'll stamp the wires every 18 inches where the wires go, and they'll put a hole for the drip line wire where it goes. They'll really get those metal studs that you need stamped out exactly how you want them. So I'm going to talk to Marlon about posting some of the companies around here that I'm familiar with that work with that. And you can reach out directly to them, and I promise I'll help you make some videos this winter and get you pointed in the right direction. Hope that helps for now. LaRuse Kuraketchigagas, that is a long name, says, but what if the pH of the soil is 8.0, then what? And he's talking about the foliar spray video. If the pH of the soil, what I tend to do if I have a high pH in the soil, and it is important that you keep the pH where you want it. In the apples, I really like to have the pH neutral. I want it at a 7. It's better for uptake. You don't end up with a lot of nutrient deficiencies, and you get a good, stronger, healthier growing tree if you can really maintain that pH at a 7, at a neutral level. One of the things I really like to use to drive pH down is elemental sulfur. Just 30 pounds of elemental sulfur every single year in areas where you have high pH. And over time, I've personally been able to drive those pHs down in the 7.2, 7.3 range where you really want them. So I would start with elemental sulfur. I had a book on my bookshelf here, and I gave away most of my great books a few years ago. I'm kind of regretting that now. I wish I had some of those back, and I'm going to reorder some of them. But in the meantime, I'm hoping they're helping some young managers. But one of the books that I had on my bookshelf for years and years was written by a man named Traynor many years ago, Traynor. And really the whole point of his book is as the water goes, so the soil goes too. And so you really, really want to follow the water. So if you're wanting to adjust the pH of the soil, you also have to deal with the water. So a lot of times that could mean a sulfur burner, so that you're dealing with that water before it ever goes out into the orchard. So consider the source of the water also if you're trying to drive down the pH in the soil. I also use a lot of lime sulfur and different forms of calcium. Those are actually neutral. Technically, they won't drive the pH down, but they will help with uptake and for water penetration, those sorts of things. Okay, looks like we managed to put together a pretty good group tonight. We've got Shabir on board, Nara Patil, 2641, Hora Trade Roots. Hora Trade Roots, that's a cool name. VJ Verma's on board, Gagam G11 is on board, and your fingers in front of Hilal Bot is on board. Thanks for joining us. Nice to have you on board tonight. If you have any questions, looks like we've got a couple questions coming in. So thanks for joining us. Appreciate that. We normally do this on Sunday, but we're kind of doing it ad lib tonight because I'm on vacation and I'm in between big adventures. So maybe after the meeting I'll post a couple more pictures of what I've been up to. I hope you enjoy those. Okay, Eunice Shamir says, please upload a video on summer pruning on M9 apple plants having Gala variety. I don't have any M9s anymore. Especially having vegetative growth and lots of upright water shoot. Eunice, I promise, as soon as I get back to work next week, when my vacation's over, I'm going to really get out and do some summer pruning videos for you. I think that would do a lot of good. I'm a big fan of summer pruning, but summer pruning can be the most destructive thing that we do all year if you don't do it right. It's just really, really important that you know what you're looking for. You know the reasons that you're doing it. And that you don't remove renewal wood that you're gonna need next year. So I'm gonna get out there and get some videos done, and I'll try to do. I don't have any M9s anymore, but I'll try to do a bigger tree with vegetative growth where we can really get in there and summer prune those trees. So up and coming, I'll have that for you next week, Ahmad. Lalit Kumar says, my plants are 2 years old on seedling king root Z1 and Gala in ratio 500 plants to the acre. What nutrients do I need to put in the drenching? I thought about polysulfate, humic acid, and mycorrhiza granules. My elevation is about 6,000 feet. 6,000 feet, that's pretty high elevation. That sounds really good, and I like the direction that you're headed. I always like to root dip before I plant. I think you can even put products in there that'll help stimulate those trees and help with fire blight and those sort of things. I really like the idea you brought up the humic acid. I like to use humic acid. There's a lot of very expensive forms of humic acid out there that you can buy and that you can use, but just a cheap humic acid 6% is great for that root dip. But there are also some very good products out there that have all of these products mixed together in a great formula. Rootex is one that comes to mind for me that I really like to use in a root dip. Stimplex is a nice one that I think Wilbur Ellis, maybe Nutrien now, I believe, makes a Stimplex product. I think that's a cytokinin product, which is one of the modes of PGRs that we discuss around here quite a bit. And something that has a seaweed in it. I think a lot of those cytokinins are seaweed formulations. So, yeah, I like the formulation that you're talking about. I like the idea of using the humic acid and the mycorrhiza. And there's some great products out there. Rootex would be a good one right offhand that comes to mind for me. Stimplex is another great product, and there are other products out there. Look for a cytokinin product. That's what I generally look for. Sanjeev Sharma says, urea application may lower the pH of soil. Then how would you guys manage the situation? I don't generally use urea much on the soil for soil applications. I generally use urea mostly for foliar applications, and you can do those without affecting the pH of the soil. I'm not a real fan of using a lot of urea in the soil, and the reason is because I've created problems for myself building up salt, layers of salts from using just too much urea. So I've really gone away from that over the years. I don't use a lot on the soil, but I would use it as a foliar. It helps for strong bud development. Sanjeev Sharma says, use it every. Okay, yep, I'm gonna move on. Jonathan Sutton's, oh, we got Terry. Hey, Terry's on board. Luke Adams is on board. Carlos Chavi. Jerome. Hey, Jerome, we answered your question first. So nice to have you on board. Colin Hill's on board. Sam Robles on board. Hi, guys. I'm just kind of in between adventures on my vacation, and I wanted to tackle a few of these questions that were piling up. So, yeah, we got a few more to go, and looks like a few have come in here. Jonathan Sutton said it. What is your cost per tree for summer pruning in a full canopy? That's a good question. I don't know. There's so many different sizes of trees. I will say this, that the cost is generally between $300 and $400 an acre for summer pruning. That, generally speaking, it can be a lot more, it can be a lot less, but generally speaking, it's in the neighborhood of $300 to $400 an acre. I'm really trying to move away from summer pruning and conventional blocks. I'm really trying to move towards Apogee and these growth retardant products. The beauty of those, they cost a little bit of money, but they eliminate the need for a lot of this summer pruning. So, short answer to your question though is $300 to $400 an acre. That can vary depending on the size of the tree and frankly whether or not you're conventional or organic. In our conventional blocks, I like to use Apogee, and so I do very little, if any, summer pruning in conventional blocks. Organic blocks, we don't have the luxury of some of those products, and I still have to summer prune those uncolored varieties, and it can be $300, $400, $500 an acre. I hope that helps, Jonathan. Ishfaq Lone says, on the hedging video, can we head back current year branch? Yes, and in my hedging video, I am. Can we head back current year branch? When I first started pruning commercially years and years ago, I had been pruning for my dad for, I'd already, by that time, I'd been pruning for 23 years for my dad, just pruning how my dad told me to prune. But when I come into a commercial setting, the very first person that I encountered that knew what he was doing said, Rob, I'm going to teach you the 2 golden rules of pruning. And with these 2 golden rules of pruning, you can prune any fruit tree out there. I think that there are some exceptions to that. I think peaches and some tree fruits that produce fruit on the first year wood, that can be a little different. But the 2 golden rules of pruning for, let's say for cherries and for apples is if you cut a limb in 1-year-old wood, and we're talking about dormant pruning in the dormant season, if you cut a limb in 1-year-old wood, you'll cause it to grow. It will become vigorous and it will grow. The sap will flow to that wound, and the natural mechanism of that tree will kick in, and you will cause it to grow. The harder you head it, the harder it will grow. The second golden rule of pruning is, if you cut a limb in 2-year-old wood or older, you'll stop it from growing. It'll never grow again. It might send off a side branch in one direction or another out of a different bud, but if you cut a limb in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old wood, you'll stop it and it'll never grow again. It'll build girth and it'll get big and fat, but you'll stop it. So theoretically, if you understand what you're looking for in the tree, whether you're hedging or you're pruning, and you consider those 2 golden rules of pruning, if you cut a limb in 1-year-old wood, you'll cause it to grow, and if you cut a limb in 2-year-old wood, you'll stop it forever. You can prune about any tree. The thing that I would add to that is in the United States, if you prune up until summer solstice, that'll be an invigorating cut. It will want to grow. But after summer solstice, it will be a de-invigorating cut. And you'll take the vigor out of the tree and it won't want to grow. So knowing those now 4 rules of pruning, that should help you to answer anything that you want to answer. So your question is specifically in my hedging video on a 1-year-old limb, can I head that back now? Yes, I can, because I'm doing it at summer solstice and it's a de-invigorating cut. Good question. Sangam says, what about growth retardant, Apogee, paclobutazol? We spent quite a bit of time talking about both of those tonight. I'm a big fan. I think they help save a lot of money on summer pruning, and they do a better job on summer pruning. They help for setting terminal buds. They help for keeping the windows open when you're growing colored varieties. I love them. So great products. They've been a game changer in the tree fruit industry. Fergus Samad Sufi says, to spring PGR fruit development, Stage 2, helping increasing fruit size. I suspect he's talking about bromelain, some sort of gibberellic acid would be my guess. Um, will it help increasing fruit size? The timing is the bloom stage. That's really the best timing for that. Right around 80% to full bloom, and even beyond that, just a little bit. But if you get much beyond that, I'm not sure the bromelain's going to help you much. There is a product called Maxell that is it's a chemical thinning product that's used, I think, at petal fall, and maybe a little beyond that, maybe even 8 to 12 millimeter, that you can use even beyond the bloom time. It's called Maxell, and that's used quite a bit in Galas as a thinner and also to affect fruit size. What's the difference between those two things? I think the mode of action for the bromelain is it actually elongates cells, and so it elongates the fruit. You've seen a long golden red delicious that's elongated, and that typically has bromelain in it. People like that pretty long red delicious apple, and we use bromelain on those, and it elongates them and makes them bigger. So yes, it will affect fruit size in that way. And the Maxell, I think, doesn't really have that elongation principle or factor. I think it will actually make the apple a little bit bigger. I haven't had great success with Maxell making apples bigger, but some people swear by it and use it every single year. So yes, you can, but please read the label and make sure you get that timing right. Latif Lone says, what to do for better fruit size in the last month before harvesting? The best thing that you can do by that point, it's a big apple at that stage is going to be a big apple later, and a small apple at that stage is going to be a small apple later. You can look up to see the different sizes of those apples. If it's a small apple now, it'll be small later. If it's a big apple now, it'll be a big apple later. And all you can do is really mess that up. All you can really do is deduct from that by not having your water schedule correctly, letting the tree become stressed. So what can you do between then and harvest? Keep the tree happy and healthy. Hold that soil moisture capacity there, 80%, or wherever it is that you're trying to hold it, and don't let it become stressed for even a single minute. Beyond that, what can you do? There are some varieties that are small, and there have been some cases where I've used Retain to extend the harvest a little bit, or Harvista to maybe buy myself another week or 10 days, and that'll tend to get you a little better size. So there are some products out there that you could look to, and Retain and Harvista are a couple of those. Khalif says, what did he mean by dry mix, please? By dry mix, I mean the granular mix that I do in the dormant season. So we have the dry mix, and that's a granular mix that I put together in the dormant season. Then we have foliar mixes that we used to spray on the tree, and beyond that, we would have fertigation mixes, which would be a liquid fertilizer that would go through the drip tube. Those are the three distinctive different types of fertilizer that I would use. The granular mix, it's those little round pellets that you would see that put together your granular formula that you would do in the dormant. Bitch Songa says, when do you apply Retain on cherries for return bloom? And what varieties of cherries does it need to go on the most? The timing for Retain is during the bloom stage. More specifically, I think it's 30 to 50% full bloom. Not sure about that. You'd want to check the label on that. But it's during the bloom stage. And I've done quite a bit of that in the past for return blooms. What varieties would I use it on? I'd use it on any variety that... Okay, well, it's the same question, right? Yeah, Miss Sunday. That's the question I'm answering right now. Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Oh, Retain. What varieties do you use it on? Any variety that you have a hard time getting a return bloom on, I would use it on. But more specifically, anymore for me, it hasn't really become so much about varieties as it has about rootstocks. If I have a Colt rootstock or a Mahaleb rootstock or a Mazard rootstock that tends to not want to come back strong the next year, I would use Retain on those varieties or those rootstocks. Anything where I have trouble coming back the next year, I would consider using Retain. Why wouldn't I use Retain? Well, because it's expensive. So I definitely wouldn't use it on any Giesler rootstock where I don't have any problem with return bloom. So, hey, Marlon, we got through the questions that had piled up over the last week. Looks like you got just a couple more there. So we'll get through these and we'll call it a night. So Ahmad Polat says, do we have to have a leader branch? What if we have goblin? Goblin? Do we have to have a leader branch? You don't have to have a leader branch. You can have an open leader tree, an open system tree. You can have a V. You can have a Y system. You can have a 2-leader system. We have all forms of systems that don't have a central leader. You have to have some form of a leader, I would think, because you want to pull limbs down off of that. But as far as having a central leader for the tree, it's not necessary. You can have a Y or a V or a lot of different forms. Urshad Kareem says, I am from India. Which PGR should we use for delicious apples? Which nutrient mainly should we use? Well, that's 2 questions. Which PGR should we use for delicious apples? I can't think of any PGR that you would need for delicious apples. Maybe, unless you're talking about red delicious apples, I do use Proman on red delicious apples, just talked about that. Instead of having a round squatty apple, you get a nice long elongated red delicious apple. So if you're talking about red delicious apples, I would use Proman at 80% full bloom. Make sure you have good temperatures and good absorption weather for that to get in. Yeah, that's what I would use. Amit Raj Poet says, sir, how do I prevent apple tree from Marsonelia and Alternaria? I would encourage you to go back to last week's Facebook Live. I covered that quite a bit, talked about the chemicals that I would use for that. Covered that pretty extensively last week. Umar Bashir, I need help. I planted 300 M9 Gala, imported, 11 June plantation date, 150 plants, got sprouted full, 100 plants are unsprouted. Please give suggestion. You just got them in the ground and they're unsprouted, meaning that you don't have feathers. You got 2 choices. You can leave the leader growing and go to the notching videos that we talked about for breaks. And you can either, in the spring, you can go in and notch those at bud swell when the buds first start pushing about a ½ inch above the bud, and maybe even use some Proman. We've got a whole host of videos on how to do that. If you go to the school, SKOOL, there's a lot of videos on that. So that's option 1. You can leave it and go in there and score those for breaks, score and even use Proman. Go to the video and look at that. Another way you can do that simply is go down to 32 inches and head the tree in the dormant season. And it'll take off and grow again, and it'll give you some real nice breaks. So either notch and use Proman. Look at those videos that we have in the school. Or just head it at 32 inches in the dormant season. You'll get some real nice breaks. I hope that helps, Umir. Zubor Mir says, how much water should be given to a Gala M9 root? We just talked about that. Just went over that question. Biku Rakta, can zinc oxide be used at the later stages of apples? Will spraying cause a russet issue? Oh, boy, can zinc oxide be used at the later stages? I'd be real careful of rusting issues, Biku. I would typically do that in the fall when the apples are already off. That's why I try to do my metals in the fall. I used to think that they were absorbed better, and I had a lot of reasons that I had made up for why I do my metals in the fall. But one of the reasons that I do them in the fall is they can cause rusting, they can mark. I think at the later stages, I would probably stay away from that until I got the apple picked. Steve Prelli says, I have pick your own blocks, cool. And I'm looking at doing commercial blocks for wholesale. What's the best way to set up a new block of trees? Looking at Gala, Honeycrisp, and Malkoon dwarf trees. Probably the best thing, if I had my choice and I didn't want to spend a ton of money, is just to do a vertical trellis system. Use wood or steel poles and put them in the ground about 40 feet apart, and anchor them in real well and put 7 wires on that thing. I'm going to do some trellis videos, but if I were you and I had a U-pick and I wanted to do a commercial block next to that, that's what I would do. I would probably plant those trees, somewhere, 12 foot, the rows would be 12 foot apart, and the trees would be 2.5 to 3 foot in the row, depending on what rootstock you're going to use. It'd be nice to know what that is. So we get the in row dialed in better, but generally between 2 and 3 feet in the row, depending on what the tree is. But I would just do a vertical trellis system using a 14-foot post, 2 feet in the ground, every 40 feet apart, and put 7 wires on that thing, spaced every 18 inches apart. Hope that helps. That's what I would do if I was you. Night Babu Bars, sir, I'm from India. When we go for table graft on M9 rootstock, why do some grafts fail to survive or sprout? I don't know the answer to that. It could be because your soil's just a little bit dry. Yeah, I had several trees fail this year, and I'm not real sure. I'm not real sure why. I'd have to see them. I'd have to see them to know. But I know that happens sometimes now. But if your graft failed, consider doing a chip bud. You can. You've got plenty of time to go in there now, all the way up into the fall, and you can put a chip bud in there, and you might still be able to save those things. Okay. Sir, this is Go Where You Soft. Sir, best PGR for fruit elongation. That would be gibberellic acid. That's the mode of action for that. It elongates cells. So I would say Promlin or gibberellic acid. How to check the variety of plants, as when we buy plants from any particular variety and later it doesn't match to the variety which we buy. So what's the easy way to verify, sir? You have to get a DNA test done. We have the ability to do that here. It's pretty expensive to do that. I've done that. I'll see rogue apple trees out in the orchard, and I thought I stumbled onto a great new variety, only to discover that it was something that was discovered a long time ago. So I have had to go through that process before. It's just a matter of finding your local lab, and that's going to be the last one, so. It's just a matter of finding the local laboratory and sending in, getting a DNA sample done. I've done that in the past, and we can certainly do that around here. Ahmed Ahmad says, is Cosmic Crisp good for commercial purpose, and how long can it be stored? I've made no secret on this channel that Cosmic Crisp is my favorite apple, not only because it was grown and developed here in Washington State. It's just a grower-friendly apple. It's a good all-around apple. It stores really, really well for the entire year. It's very consistent. I love the Cosmic Crisp. Also wanted to mention too that we took a poll on the page that somebody had asked what the best Gala strain was, and I said it's the Buckeye Gala. No question about it. It's the Buckeye. And I got a lot of really good feedback on that. And you guys sent in some really beautiful pictures of some galas that were other than Buckeye. So I want to commend you for that and say, hey, yeah, those are some beautiful, beautiful galas. I just don't happen to have them. My experience is with Buckeye being the best gala, but boy, you guys sure made a case for the varieties that you sent the pictures in on. Those were some nice looking galas, so good for you. Clem Bytel says, my biggest problems are leaf hole shot in cherries and prunes, and leaf curl in peaches, cherry, and apple maggots. Could you give me some advice? There's a lot there. Leaf curl in peaches, cherry, and apple maggots. Those are spray issues. The leaf hole shot in the cherries. Boy, you got any old wood laying around the orchard? I've had real problems with that, and I look to my firewood piles, and I see the firewood piles. I feel for you, Clem. It looks like a spray pressure issue. Wish I had some better advice for you. Gunther Yusoff says, best fruit PGR for fruit elongation. We just talked. Okay, just went over that. Jerome Empey, what timing? This is the last question. What timing do you like to put out Mylar? Do you think surround hurts color? I've used a lot of Rainox, but it's getting expensive and hard to get. Do I think surround hurts color? Yeah, I do think surround hurts color, and it's kind of hard to get off at the packing shed. Have you tried Microcal, Jerome? Microcal is a good middle of the road that you haven't mentioned here between Rainox and surround. I really like Microcal, and I would recommend that to you, Jerome. Take a look at that. Microcal. Some of those varieties that I'm really struggling to get good coverage on, or maybe I have a drought situation in a block and I don't have the cooling that I had before, I've really gone to Microcal. I also use it on all the borders. And will it impede color? Not as much as the surround. It's a good product, easy to get off of the package shed. Take a look at that. Your first question is, what is the timing on Mylar? I used to really say that Mylar had to go out 10 days before harvest, and that's just a rule. And the reason for that is because if you put the Mylar out this time of the year during the cooling season, it only lasts 5, 6, 7 days out in the orchard, and the cooling sprinklers absolutely destroy it. Takes all the fabric, the reflective properties out of the paper, and it just doesn't work anymore. So for that very reason, I'm really careful in the heat, in the hot part of the year when we're doing galas, maybe all the way up to Fuji's, that I really wait and I'm disciplined about putting that Mylar out 10 days before harvest. And frankly, I want to mention when we're talking about Mylar, it's also very important. I've built machines. We have our own machines. I'll put a picture up. I invented it myself. And we built machines that roll up the Mylar in the field. One thing you really want to do if you lay down Mylar, you want to get out there just as soon as that block is picked and roll that Mylar up and get it in the dumpster. And the reason for that is for us, we use a lot of Mylar. And if you leave it out in the field and you irrigate that and you get into the fall and it gets muddy and it gets wet and the tractors drive on it, you're going to pay for all that rain, all that mud, and all that weight that's in that Mylar when you put it in the dumpster. Versus if you can go out there the minute you get that block picked and roll that up while it's dry, it'll be a lot less money that you're going to end up paying the refuse company to haul that off for you. So very important, if you're using Mylar, get it out of the field just the minute the block's picked. You're going to save yourself a ton of money. That didn't have anything to do with your question, Jerome. Your question is about timing. I am learning more and I am changing my thoughts on putting Mylar out. And when I get beyond this real hot cooling season to where we're not cooling as much, I want to put the Mylar out as early as I possibly can. If I'm not at risk of losing it over cooling sprinklers, say when we get into August, I want to put it out as early as I can. I'll start getting it out at all the Fuji's, all the Pink Ladies, all the Envy. I'll get the leaf blower going out there 24 hours a day, blowing the leaves off and going right behind and laying the Mylar. So hope that helps. This time of year, 10 days. When you're in the cooling season, 10 days before harvest. But as you get later in the year and you're not cooling, destroy paper, get it out there as early as possible. That's my short answer. And get it out of the field as quickly as possible. I hope that helps. I want to thank our Facebook subscribers. That helps us. We really appreciate that. We did post the ProBlend paint mixture in the subscriber column. Put the fertilizer program in there last week. I shared those with you. So I hope you had a chance to look at those, and I hope those will help. We are going to be back next Sunday. I will be back off of vacation and ready to answer your questions. And so looking forward to getting some summer pruning videos put together for you. Check out the school, SKOOL, it's free, doesn't cost anything. We're really trying to get categories in there, so if you want to look at Mylar, we'll have a section on Mylar. If you want to look at trellises, there'll be a section on trellises. So take a look at that, take a look at the school, push that follow button, that really helps us. We've really grown in a short amount of time, and we appreciate it, appreciate the audience, appreciate you following, and hope it's still helping. Want to thank Marlon for narrating and editing the page and keeping it all put together. And with that, I'm going to get back out there and do me some drift boat fishing on the Klickitat River tomorrow and catch me a bunch of steelhead. So you can look forward to some of those pictures here in the coming days. So have a great week. We'll see you out there. A lot of people signed on for a little ad lib deal.